Hello and welcome everybody to Connections, which is a forum for relationships, for healing and expression. And we are in episode 74 and we have our special guest today, Bill Reed. And the title is What Makes You Happy? Is it IT or is it something else? He will tell you. But before we start, some words about Connections Forum. We are talking about what we think are the most important things of life, like relationship issues, like expression, self-expression, and healing. And Margherita here is in the part of healing. She is my co-host. She will present herself in a minute. And I'm more in the expression part, let's say, but also in the growing up part and waking up part. And relationships. We are, both of us are working on relationships and our own and helping other people's relationship issues to find a resolution. What else should we say about Connections Forum? Margherita, do you have something to add?
Yes, I can add that we have a lot of fun here when we have interviewees that we can ask questions. And before I'm going to introduce our very special wizard, IT wizard, I can tell a little bit about myself. I'm Margherita Crystal Lotus, an intuitive mentor, healer, author, creative artist, and consciousness explorer from Sweden, which is my home country. I help stressed and overwhelmed professional women overcome emotional turmoil and recover to their authentic self, and I do that via online programs or at Enchantment, a private healing retreat I have created here in Kingston, Ontario. Yeah, that's Canada where I live now.
Okay.
All right.
We are the Europeans.
Yes.
Dispersed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're in Italy and I'm in Canada right now. So for me, I just absolutely love seeing clients thrive and flourish when they see the gift of healing in their life. And my website is thecrystallotus.com. Did you want to add something more, Heidi?
Yeah, I can say my website is thepowerofrelationship.com. I said we are working also in relationships, but I'm also doing another Hangout show together with my husband Mark, and it's called The Wisdom Factory, where we talk about, let's say, the more philosophical parts of life, a little bit, let's say, meta speech, why we here are mostly, not always, concerned with giving tips and tricks for everyday life. I am almost everything. I'm I started out as a classical singer and a voice teacher, voice therapist, and watch out, something we will do in August with voices. So, and then I came over to coaching, counseling and coaching and relationship coaching. And we have a retreat here in Italy where Mia Voss was some time ago. As Will Reed, you were with us on a call when she was here. And we invite you, when you come over to Italy, to stay at Paradiso Integrale, which is the place where we are living, but also the name of our non-profit organization. And I think that's all for the moment. Now I give over to you, Margherita, to truly introduce Bill.
Yes, I am so excited to talk about Bill Reed because he is an IT wizard. And what he says about himself here on his profile, he says he has two rules. Think for yourself and question authority, especially when the authority is yourself. And the second rule is my life is no more, no less important than any other. I will make today the right day. It's only the day we ever have. Result-oriented with 20+ experience or years of experience and accomplishment in the IT industry. So here we have Bill Reed. Did I miss something?
No, I think you got it all. I mean, yeah, there's a lot more to my experience than you know, a couple of words that you know, I've thrown out there on profiles. But yeah, my whole philosophy has been, you know, for the most part, you know, not just questioning the authorities around you and whether somebody else is doing something right or wrong, because that falls into more of a judgment category. But it's more geared towards questioning yourself, not doubting yourself necessarily. But when you're, say, in the IT industry field and you're considered maybe a subject matter expert or an authority on a particular subject, it's important to not come across as egotistical, a know-it-all, that you know, have the answers to everything, but to be a continually open mind for the things you don't know, knowing that you don't know everything, knowing that you have, you know, an opportunity to learn new things all the time. So, you know, always, you know, questioning your own knowledge about things, and it, you know, keeps an open mind to listen to what other people might have to say and take it into consideration, you know, on your day-to-day behavior. So in order to do those kind of things, you know, I've, you know, got a few rules that I follow, you know, not just the questioning of yourself and what you do, but, you know, just in your day-to-day behavior and how to, you know, get the most out of what you're doing every day.
So the topic for today is, what makes you happy? So we came up with that title, you and I, Bill, when we were talking on the video chat.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say about what makes you happy?
I think what, you know, it boils down to, for me, you know, what makes me happiest is being authentic, being real, and in order to do that, you have to be nobody but yourself. You know, you can maybe grab a few things, you know, attributes or traits from things that you like about other people's behaviors, but in the end, you have to reformulate. You have to decide that you're the only one who occupies that space that you're in, and you shouldn't necessarily have to prove anything or promise anything or offer anything other than just what you already are.
So what I'm hearing from you is that we should be authentic and not trying to hide behind knowledge, perhaps, or what we can do, what our behaviors are, but actually show ourselves as we actually are. Is that what you're doing?
That's what I'm doing. It's what I try to do. You know, I'm not successful every day, you know, and that's another part of it, is being okay with a mistake that you might make, and not spending a lot of time dwelling or wallowing in a problem, you know, but looking at mistakes or looking at life situations, challenges as learning opportunities, as something that you can learn from. So, you know, so you've been in a marriage for 10 years and you get divorced and you feel like it's the end of the world. Well, you know, there's some lessons to learn from that. You know, the kinds of person you want to be, or the kind of person you like to be around, and you know, always taking the you know, the stumbles that you fall and turning them into something new, turning them into something that, you know, you can learn from, and then turning around and helping other people, you know, by expressing those things. And sometimes people don't want to listen. That's the right? Not a lot of people like to listen.
Yeah, and
I have family, you know, that I love dearly, but some of them will not listen to anything I have to say, which is fine. So in those cases, you can only hope that they will at least witness your behavior. You know, maybe that you can lead by an example.
I wanted to say, often we don't even listen to ourselves, you know. We know we could do it differently, and we don't. And so how can we blame others?
Yeah, I see it as a sort of constant battle between the egoic mind, you know, and the spiritual being, as this, you know, the egoic mind is this toddler inside of you who only knows that it wants this and it wants that, and it doesn't want this or doesn't want that. It's all based on wants and desires or greed, whereas the spiritual being is more like the parent inside of us. But it's a calm, collected parent. Its voice is not loud, and if you listening to yourself, not just listening to the temper tantrum going on in your mind because you can't buy the new car you want because you don't have the money to whatever, but listening to the parent inside of you say, you know, you don't really need this, or, you know, you do need this. You know, that internal being is a lot harder to listen to for a lot of people, I think, because that egoic mind toddler inside of you is pretty loud for most of us. It keeps things nice and noisy so you can't hear what your being is trying to tell you.
Nice and noisy, yeah, of course. I think everybody have experienced that too, but I don't think that most people really recognize, correct me if I'm wrong, that if we actually align ourselves with our spiritual being, that's the way to being really happy. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a book that I'm really fond of called Zen Mind, Beginner Mind, by Zen teacher Suzuki, who talks about the relationship between the mind and the being that of like a child and a, you know, a parent and a child, or as in his description, he describes it as you know, a cow in a field. You know, if you pin up, if your field that you have your cow running around in is constricted by a fence, then it's eventually going to break out of that fence and cause harm to others or itself. In other words, spreading suffering. And if you put no fence up and give it no boundary, it's simply going to run out into the road and get hurt and either cause suffering to itself or others again. And said the right way, or the recommended way, would be to go the middle way and provide a wide berth, and, you know, keep an eye on the your cow. Not necessarily such a close, watchful eye that the cow is, you know, angry that you're watching it, but, you know, like as in just the cow knowing that you're watching, the child knowing that you're there but has enough space to play safely, gives it that freedom so that you can begin to build that trust, you know, between your two halves, between your being and your mind.
So in your field of business, which is, you know, very technical, for a person like myself, sometimes it's very frustrating when we integrate with technology. And so when we talked before, you have some ideas about how to coach your client, let's say, about not getting into that cow state, or the, you know, that state.
Trapping the child or letting it run out into traffic. Yeah. What do you do?
Yeah. So how do you work with your clients when they're really frustrated about something that doesn't work?
Well, that's a great question, because I deal with that a lot, and I have dealt with that a lot in the past, and I've come to really enjoy dealing with a customer who has maybe an employee or a person, you know, stakeholder, or even a regular user. The ones I enjoy discussing and talking with the most are those most difficult people who are resistant to the changes that might be coming. So you've got a business that's going from using a legacy old email system that is outdated, but they still use it, and you're going to move them over to Google, right? And they have a lot of resistance to this. Oh, it's something new. I have to change all my processes. This isn't going to work. To me, those are the most important people to talk with, and not just talk at them and tell them this is what's happening, deal with it. That's not a good answer. even if that is the reality, that's not a good answer. So usually I'll schedule time and sit with them and ask them to, let's talk about all of these fears or all of these concerns or frustrations you have with a new process that maybe you're not enjoying, you think maybe is less efficient than what you did before. And just in the process of giving them space to talk and express their frustrations, we begin to build this mutual trust and respect, because I'm not forcing something down their throats, and I let them vent and talk, and we work out how to reinvent a new process that usually is more efficient, and it takes time, but usually at the end of a project or somewhere in the middle of the project, a light will go off in their head or go on, and they'll realize, oh, this is how it works, and it be patient. It takes patience to wait for that moment when they have that aha. I see what we're doing now. We can make things much more efficient, or we can save a lot of money, and we can, there's all these other dependencies that may or may not be dependencies anymore. So they lighten their load, and they usually become your best friend by the end of a project. So
wow.
So
people always look at me cross-eyed when I say, my favorite person to talk to is your, biggest complainer. Let me talk to them, because I've been in their shoes too. I know what it's like to be frustrated. And even if you can't solve their problems, you can at least brainstorm and come up with new solutions. Getting to the root of a
so
problem.
what I'm hearing you say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to speak at the moment. I was wondering, what I'm hearing you say is that you don't just give the advice and rationally, but you enter into the feeling space of the people, into their fears, into their emotions, and you address the problem in a more integrated way, and not just fact after fact after fact after fact. Mm-hmm. Is it true?
That is true. Because, when you receive an email from your boss saying, we're making a big global change to our infrastructure here, here's what you need to do, and they give you a document that's 15 pages long, it's just not going to work if it's too much of a challenge. They get to the first sentence and they've already given up. So being able to talk to somebody as a human being, from human to human, we're not trying to, create problems. We're trying to, build better future, better solutions, to work and collaborate and all these things. Getting into somebody's feeling space, getting in touch with other people's emotions, being sympathetic, and it's not just sympathy, but it's, I'd say more compassion, showing compassion and allowing your own relationship within yourself, between your mind and being, the tighter that relationship becomes, the more you can, be compassionate with somebody else who might be going through something difficult, and you can provide real support and value to them.
This reminds me of okay, am I there? Yeah, we lost Heidi. Yeah. That reminds me of a science fiction book I read when I was a teenager. I don't remember the title, but the story goes like they have this humongous computer that is about to shut down, and they have a technical psychologist or something who's talking with the computer, and so he has to navigate with different questions, and if it's too direct, it's just going to crash. And I'm reminded of that because you're that person, I think.
Yeah, you have to tiptoe through that part of their mind, because it's like dealing with a child who, and not that these are children, and not in any kind of negative connotative way, but you know, if you have a kid, you're going through the grocery store and you have your toddler with you, and they want to eat Twinkies, and they're grabbing at things off the shelves. You know, you could let them have a tantrum on the floor and create havoc and knock things over and break things and create lots of noise. You can also pick them up and hold them really tight and run out to the car, you know, and just take them out of the situation completely. Neither one of those things really work too well. You can also slap the kid and beat them into submission, and that's not very nice either. But, you know, in my experience in dealing with, you know, my own kids when they were little, and with other people's kids, you know, that I know that they're still fairly small, taking the time to sit down with them and talk with them as if they are yourself. You know, if you imagine a child as your younger self, and what would your younger self want to hear from somebody who truly loves them and cares about them and is compassionate about what they're feeling and what they're going through, is really the only way you can build that trust. And then, you know, that's what you do with your family. You should do it with yourself and your family and your friends and your non-friends and the people who are, you know, your enemies even. These people who are the biggest complainers and want to shut down a project just because I've been using Outlook forever and I will never ever use anything else, blah. Well, that's you think it's a showstopper, but it's not. It's somebody who just needs to have their voice heard, you know, and know that they're cared about. Doesn't mean it's going to change anything, but it means that, you know.
So how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you initiate the conversation with your greatest complainer, for instance?
Usually it's, you know, it usually arises out of, we create these little support forums in, you know, a project. So users who are part of a pilot, a program or whatever, they can go to their little internal website and log their complaints or concerns or things. So this is usually how they start. But then after that starts, usually the biggest complainers will just have repeat questions over and over and over again. And so that's how I target, you know, who I need to talk to. The approach is usually, I just, you know, hey, I'm here to help. Maybe you can help me better understand what you're feeling, you know, what your issues might be. Let me hear, you know, because just because we have a new technology coming in doesn't mean we don't want to hear what you have to say. You know, decisions have been made at some high level, you know, corporate C-level. You don't have any control over it. So how do we make the best of what we have? Let's figure out a solution. Let's, you know, find a compromise, you know. That's usually how I approach it, is, you know, very gently, hey, you want to talk? Let's just talk about this.
Yeah.
I can't promise that I'm going to fix or change anything, but I can at least better understand what the problems might be. I've had a lot of success over the years with dealing with Google. I don't work for Google. Google works for me. So in that mentality, I have dealt with, on these projects for deploying Google stuff to enterprises and government agencies, with, okay, if Google was working for me, maybe I can help them. You know, so if there's a user or a group of users in an agency organization that has some serious concerns, I'll listen to them and I'll write them up and document them and regurgitate them with them, the users, and say, is this right? And then I'll do whatever I can to be as creative as I can to come up with a solution. And sometimes the solutions are maybe a third-party piece of software. But a lot of times it's, hey, you know, this would be really valuable, not just for this customer, but I can see other customers who might want some feature like this. So I spend quite a bit of time on those things, and I write them up as best I can, articulate it as detailed as I can, and I discuss these things with engineers at Google. And I've had, geez, in the last 4 years or so, probably 4 or 5, key features that I've worked on with Google that they've implemented for customers on a global basis. So they listen, but they only listen to stuff that's put together, well thought out, might be valuable to more than just one person. So it's for a greater good, in a lot of ways.
It's very important to actually see the community around the technical issue, mm-hmm. and actually have the people's happiness in mind, because if a person is really frustrated and really resisting, they can cause a lot of havoc in the system, right? But if you make them understand that there's a global picture, or there's the wider net, and more people can benefit from it, and I so appreciate that the sensitive nature you have about actually making people feeling heard, and so that they can be happy and then engage and see the benefit for themselves as well. I mean, this is a new aspect that you're bringing to us here.
They get to be a part of the creative effort. If they have something to say, it might be that something they say is just another part of a puzzle piece from a conversation I had with somebody unrelated to the situation. That might go, for me, I might say, what this person wants and what this other person wants, maybe there's something that could be put together with these two pieces to create something more than the two alone. So a lot of times, things don't happen right away, but over time, when you talk to people, you find out, these things are important. And then, you're constantly asking yourself, well, Google did it this way for a reason. Maybe there's a reason. Let me look for that reason. And then sometimes you find that there is a really good reason, but sometimes you find that it's an oversight. Google didn't put in the ability to bold characters in your Google Docs. Gee, wouldn't that be nice? But back in 2010, there were a lot of missing features from Google Docs. And now, over time, over just feature suggestion after feature, request, more and more and more of these capabilities have come into play. And it's not just with Google Docs. I mean, that's just one example of many. But
can I come in for a moment? Mm-hmm. I see there is Nazim arrived. He came out of the train and ran to see you. And there's also Michael Thomas here in the audience. Yeah. Maybe other people who haven't shown up yet. And Bill, what I wanted to ask you, what is your role? I mean, I haven't understood. Are you a business owner? Are you a coach? Are you a mediator between Google and other people? What is your role there?
My role, like right now, I work for a company as a consultant, and what I consult on, I'm a senior Google Apps deployment engineer, which means technically what I do is I work with legacy email systems like Exchange, Postfix, SendMail, and GroupWise, and Lotus Notes, all those things. I know these systems very, very well, and I help transition customers to Google Apps specifically for their businesses. So my role is usually a technical one in architecture, in that what I do is I look at what they're currently doing, what a business might currently be doing in their processes, as well as their architecture, with how maybe mail is flowing between applications, automated system alerts, and users, and I help build a new system for those processes to continue or be enhanced.
Can I interrupt you there for a moment?
Sure.
Nassim is saying, plus Bill Reed is my buddy and a talented one.
Yeah, I love Nazim. He's great. He and I chat on a regular basis, and I personally, I like to help wherever I can. If there's something that I can help with, I love doing it. Not for money or anything, except for building relationships and trust. So like Nazim, for instance, every once in a while he's doing, Hangouts on air or presentations with Google Hangouts in, conference rooms or halls and things. And, he usually pings me and wants me to hop into the Hangout before they go live to help them check with lighting and sound and making sure that the angles of the camera, come through correctly. So I enjoy doing that kind of stuff with them just once in a while. And it's 2 seconds of my time. It doesn't take anything for me.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, this is really a good insight into Google too. We have the Hangouts, which we are on right now, Hangouts on Air. And if you actually think about it, you giving us some background to trust Google more, because the changes and the new technology that makes connections much easier, that is phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean,
Mark, could you not download something? The download speed is so bad. It's always interrupted here.
Oh. Sorry about that. Looks like she keeps getting disconnected. But you're right. The I for years, starting in '81, really was when I got into computers, 1981, and started off with DOS 1.0 and Flight Simulator and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, text-based games. So and all these things were on PC technology, on Microsoft operating systems, and it wasn't until 2010 that I broke away from the Microsoft world, because at that time I was working on a Microsoft technology team at Unisys and supporting the U.S. government and some of their agencies. So I was deeply involved with them and deeply involved with a lot of Microsoft consultants and their whole thing. I got involved with Google sort of by accident. A friend of mine who I've worked with, Patrick O'Neill, he mentioned to me one day, he's like, hey, they're having some meeting with Google across the street here in Reston, Virginia. We're not invited, but we both knew like 4 or 5 of the people in the meeting who were going to be there. So we just decided to go over and hang around. We hung around, and I guess we looked like we were in the right place because we both got into the meeting, and, we both started the Google Center of Excellence at Unisys. I don't work there anymore, but that was the whole beginning of my work with Google. And getting to talk to people at Google, not just salespeople, but the engineers and the people, building the stuff in the back end, hearing how they think and experiencing how they think, their philosophies on what the reason why they do stuff, seemed so much more noble than a lot of the other companies I've worked with. They really are about providing a way to search and organize all of the data in the world to make it accessible to everyone, not to just a certain group of people who can afford the licenses for some operating system or piece of software. And that seemed very positive to me, because that's one of the things that I complained about for years with Microsoft, was so expensive, and to purchase licenses for a big organization and maintain, and it just seemed very complicated, overcomplicated. And I just liked the simplicity of what Google offered, and the philosophy. A lot of people joke about don't do evil. People think, well, that's impossible. Well, Google tries, though. That's the big difference, is they try. And then people would complain about the terms of service changing all the time between YouTube and Google or Gmail and all the other services. Well, that to me was also important, because if I looked at some of the terms of service at any other providers out there, there were a lot of things that weren't being said that were still happening. You know, at least with Google, to me, it was they were being very upfront. And here's what we're doing. You know, it seemed very open to me, which, you know, I'm a big proponent of. You know, anything open source. I really think that when you have a community of people coming together to design a new piece of software or a new system, that's where you have collaboration, and you have people doing this for free, for fun. And to me, that's part of what makes you happy. Part of what makes me happy is enjoying what I do. If I didn't enjoy messing around with computer stuff, and I had to do it, I wouldn't be happy. You know, I enjoy screwing around on the computer. I enjoy tinkering and taking things apart and figuring them out and then putting them back together, hopefully to work again. That all comes from my childhood. I used to take the radio and tape recorders and any kind of device I could find, get my hands on, I was always taking apart. Getting in trouble, but I see Nazim just posted a comment a second ago. He said, same 1981 CAD management PageMaker. Yeah, Spark. Yeah, my first computer was a ZX81 Sinclair, the Texas Instrument computer. Had a little 64K RAM pack you plugged into the back. You plugged the monitor. You used just a black and white TV, and your programs were all in Basic A, and recorded them on, you know, saved them onto cassette tapes. Good times, old school. For sure.
Well, this has a very many different layers. We asked the question, what makes you happy? And here we're getting an expose of what Google does and a little bit more insight about what their actually aims are. Mm-hmm. It makes me very, very happy to hear somebody or talk with somebody who actually are a person like yourself who is really concerned with what the users of this platform or the technical platforms online is, because that is a great frustration sometimes for some people who are not technical. I mean, I am so grateful, Bill, that you have come here and shed some light on that.
Yeah,
and I'm really grateful. I'm grateful that there are people who are happy to explore technology, because it was not on my radar when I was young to work with devices. And when I studied, I also began with mathematics, and there was a course in computer language. I didn't want to. And only the last few years I'm entering into the mindset that today, without a computer and knowing a little bit, it's difficult. But not everybody must be happy by that. Everybody has their whole own way, and I'm happy that there are somebody who is happy by helping other people to get the technical things done. Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, I love helping, and that's, you know, one of the reasons. You know, Mia Voss is a good friend of mine, and we've been friends for probably a good 6 months or so now. And, you know, I saw some needs that maybe she had, or, you know, I just wanted to help in whatever way I could. And so that gives me an opportunity to learn. You know, I don't get paid for anything like that. I just, you know, want to help because it expands my knowledge, you know, and so maybe I can figure something else out, because I see producing shows like this and many others as a great way to expand, you know, your audience and talk to more people, and, you know, spread your, you know, thoughts and feelings, and, you know, get people together, you know. So making that whole process easier is important, you know, because it's hard to produce a show. It's not as easy as just click a button.
Go ahead, Heidi.
I think she froze.
She froze, yeah. And I'm sorry about this bad internet connection in Italy right now, so please have a little bit patience of that. And yeah, you know, we're basically coming to the end of our show here, Bill. And what would you say to the audience? What advice would you say to somebody about this kind of topic with the technical staff or what you do, and so that you can guide them to also appreciate being helpful to other people?
I think I can probably sum it up in something pretty simple. I put together something a while back, a little blog post I put together. It's actually derived from something called the Zen of Attraction, and it goes through these 10 things, and they all have a nice little description. But the very last one is my favorite, and it's become no one, become absolutely no one. Become nobody but your authentic self. Don't try to be Richard Branson. Don't try to be any celebrity. Don't try to be your friends. Don't try to be your parents. Just be yourself. Define yourself. Build yourself. So become no one.
Wow.
That's what I would say.
Wow. I mean, I'm so amazed. This was a surprise thing that when we interview some of the people, it's lifting the lid of the box so that we can see every much more about that person and really reveal the gems that they have to say. I'm very impressed, Bill.
Oh, thank you.
Heidi, are you able to have your takeaway here?
I hope so, because I fell out so many times and I often missed a little bit. But I'm so happy that you asked Bill to come to us and talk about that, because I'm really, really, when we are talking about being happy, I'm really happy that there are people like him who are not just but they are integrating all parts of life. And you obviously are on a spiritual path, and you are integrating this in the work. And I think this is the future for all of us, to create harmony. And thank you.
I agree. I hope we see more and more people being compassionate towards each other and being their individuals, and continuing on to pull things together, get out of the illusory, dualistic way of thinking that everything is separate,
I think personally we need both at the right moment. So
balance.
Yeah, the balance.
The balance. Yeah, have you ever seen that Jill Bolte TED Talks thing, where she talks, what is it called? Just came to my mind. About losing, it's a great 15-minute long video that she did several years ago, where she talked about, she's a neurobiologist, she's a brain doctor, and she talks about her experience having a brain aneurysm. And
I saw that. Yeah. That's extreme. Yeah.
And her experience of going from knowing who she was in a physical space to this place of expansion to the universe, the whole thing, and that we really are this connected thing. But she gets into some cool technical things about how the brain works, and I just found that really interesting. That's part of what got me started on this. Think about the mind and the ego. I'm sorry, the ego and the being.
Bill, Nassim asked for the blog link to your blog that you quoted. Would it be possible that you could find that link for the TED Talk too and put it in the comment chat?
Sure. Yeah, I've got my little blog thing here. I'll throw it into the comments in a second, and I'll go find that TED Talk from Jill and throw it out there too.
Okay. Good.
Wow, this has been a very exciting episode. It's number 74, and next week we're going to have number 75, and I hope you guys can join us next week. Heidi, you have a final word.
Yeah, I have the final word that probably, I think, 99% we will have Sheila Strover next week, and she will talk about her experience. She is such a humble and very lovable person, and I'm really glad that she comes on our show, because about a year ago I asked her to come and she didn't yet want to, and now she is ready. Isn't it lovely? Wonderful. So thank you very much, and see you next week.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.